Hello student, welcome to EPG Pathsala. I am Dr. Ajit Jaiswal from Department of Anthropology, Pondicherry Central University, Puducherry. Today we are going to discuss about a module titled Women and Health under paper Human Growth, Development and Nutrition. So student, let us see what we are going to learn in this module. The purpose of this module is to understand the concept of health and women in cross-cultural perspective. This module is also intended to acquaint the student with some of the significant issues like health transition, socioeconomic inequalities and gender inequalities. Women and the healthcare systems and its policy implication are also the focus of this module. Before starting, let me give you the introductory information about women and health. Women are an integral part of human society. But for a woman, there couldn't have been any man. She is the mother of mankind. Despite holding such an important and unquestionable position, the role of woman has been defined by man over millennia. Our Vedas tells us that women held an important place in the ancient culture. No rituals was ever complete without the presence of a woman by her man's side. All our gods are worshipped alongside their heavenly consorts. There is no dichotomy there. No one questions this. This staunchest of man chauvinist reverently bow his head to goddesses Lakshmi or Durga. It is not considered a sign of weakness to bow to female deities. Women at home and society in general are a different cup of tea. They are treated as second-class citizens. How did this battle of sex begin? How did the man win the winning hand? I think that economics had a role to play in the scene of things. When man took on the role of a bread earner and woman took the natural role of a nurturer. These roles situated their intended role by the creator. Man was physically strong while the woman was inherently strong. Over a period of time, the man started believing that his role was superior to that of the woman as without him there would be no food at the table. Women's role was taken as for granted. The physically feeble woman was led to believe this lie for centuries. Understanding women's health in the world today. Why focus on women and health? The response is that women and girls have particular health needs and that health systems are failing them. Now there is important question. What are these needs? There are conditions that only women experiences and that have negative health impact that only women suffer. Some of these conditions such as pregnancy and childbirth are not in themselves diseases, but these are normal physiological and social processes that carry health risk and require health care. Some health challenges affect both women and men, but because they have a greater or different impact on women, they require responses that are tailored specifically to women's needs. Other conditions affect man and women more or less equally, but women face greater difficulties in getting the health care they need. Furthermore, gender-based inequalities, as in education, income, and employment, these limit the ability of women to protect their health and achieve optimal health status.
Women's health matter not only to women themselves, it is also crucial to the health of the children they will bear. This underlines an important point, that is, paying due attention to the health of girls and women today is an investment not just for the present but also for future generations. This implies addressing the underlying social and economic determinant of women's health, including education, which directly benefits women and is important for the survival, growth, and development of their children. Analysis of women's health often focus on or are limited to specific periods of women's life, that is, the reproductive ages, for instance, or specific health challenges such as the human immunodeficiency viruses, that is HIV, or maternal health, violence, or even mental ill health. The present chapter, by contrast, provides data on women's health throughout the life course and covers the full range of causes of death and disability in the major world regions. The chapter is based on data currently available to WHO, that is World Health Organization. However, the analysis revealed serious shortcomings in the system needed to generate timely and reliable data on the major health challenges that girls and women face, especially in low income countries. Many of the conclusions are based on extrapolation from incomplete data. Nonetheless, the available information points clearly to challenges and health concerns that must be addressed urgently if girls and women are to realize fully their human right to health and by extension to their economic and social rights. The aim of the detailed epidemiological analysis in the following section is to provide the foundation for a comprehensive understanding of the health challenges faced by girls and women around the world throughout their life. From this overview of the burden of ill health women face at different ages, not only death but also non-fatal, often chronic conditions. There are four main themes emerge as indicated in the figure. These are explored more fully later in this coming chapter. The four figure represent the mortality and disease burden, which is also indicated by term DALY, in the female by region, age group, and broad causes, indicating the high income countries, American countries, Western Pacific, Europe, Mediterranean range, Southeastern region, Asia, and African region, ranging from age 0 to 9 years, 10 to 19 years, 20 to 59 years, and 60 years and above.
First, the leading global causes of the overall burden of disease in females are lower respiratory infection, depression and diarrheal diseases. Second, in all regions and age groups, girls and women in the higher income countries have lower level of mortality and burdens of disease than those who live in lower income countries. Across all ages, the highest mortality and disability rate are found in Africa. Third, The causes of death and disability among girls and women vary throughout the life courses. In childhood, most death and disabilities result from communicable diseases such as HIV, diarrhea and respiratory disease, malaria and maternal and perinatal conditions. At older ages, pattern of death and disability changes to non-communicable chronic diseases such as heart disease, stroke, cancer. Fourth, there are significant regional variation in the composition of the overall burden of death and disability. In Africa and Southeast Asia, communicable diseases are important causes of death and disability at all ages. However, in women aged 60 years and over, in all regions, most deaths are due to non-communicable diseases.
Increasing life expectancy. Females generally live longer than males, on average by 6 to 8 years. This difference is partially due to an inherent biological advantage for the female, but it also reflects behavioral differences between man and woman. As newborn girls are more likely to survive through their first birthday than newborn boys are. This is a report given by WHO in 2009. This advantage continues throughout life. Women tend to have lower rates of mortality at all ages, probably due to a combination of the genetic and behavioral factors region. Women's longevity advantage becomes more apparent in old age. This may be the result of lower lifetime risk behavior such as smoking and alcohol use. Alternatively, it may be the effect of harder to identify biological advantages that result in relatively lower rates of cardiovascular disease and cancer in women. The gap in life expectancy between women and men is narrowing to some extent in some developed countries. This may be due to increased smoking among women and falling rate of cardiovascular disease among men. But the question is open to debate. The female advantage in life expectancy may be a relatively recent phenomenon. Accurate historical data are hard to come by, but there is evidence that in 17th century, England and Wales, the life expectancy of man surpassed that of women. Part of the explanation may lie in the low social position of women at the time, coupled with high rate of mortality that were often associated with pregnancy and childbearing. Globally, female life expectancy at birth has increased by nearly 20 years since the early 1950s, when it was just 51 years. In 2007, female life expectancy at birth was 70 years compared with 65 years for male. Life expectancy for women is now more than 80 years in at least 35 countries, but the picture is not uniformly positive. For instance, life expectancy at birth for women in the African region was estimated at only 54 years in 2007, the lowest of any region. In some African countries, particularly in East and Southern Africa, the lack of improvement in life expectancy is mainly due to HIV or AIDS, and maternal mortality. But these are not the only factor at work. In few countries, women's life expectancy is equal to or shorter than men's as a result of the social disadvantages that women face. However, life expectancy alone is only part of the story. The extra year of life for women are not always lived in good health. In low-income countries, especially, the difference between women and men in terms of healthy life expectancy is marginal, that is only 1 year. And in several countries, however, the healthy life expectancy for women is lower than for men. This information is also provided by World Health Statistics in 2009. The health transition. One of the most striking features of recent decades has been a shift in the underlying causes of death and the disease around the world. This so-called health transition affects men, women, and children in all countries and stems from changes in three interrelated and mutually reinforcing elements, that is, demographic structure, pattern of disease, and risk factor. The demographic transition is characterized by lower mortality rates among children under 5 years and declining fertility rate, which result in an aging population. The average number of children per woman has fallen globally from 4.3 during the year 1970s to 2.6 by 2005 to 10. These declines are largely the result of increasing use of contraception. The epidemiological transition reflects a shift in the main cause of death and disease away from infectious diseases such as diarrhea and pneumonia, which are traditionally associated with poorer countries, towards non-communicable diseases such as cardiovascular disease, stroke, and cancer, which are long considered to be the burden of richer countries. The risk transition is characterized by a reduction in risk factors for infectious diseases like undernutrition, unsafe water, and poor sanitation, and an increase in risk factor for chronic diseases such as overweight, use of alcohol and tobacco. This health transition is occurring at different rates in different countries. In many middle income countries, including much of Latin America and China, the health transition is already quite pronounced. In the early stages of health transition, women and children face high level of mortality, often linked to nutritional deficiency, unsafe water and sanitation, smoke from solid fuel used for cooking and heating, and lack of care during childhood, pregnancy, and childbearing. This traditional risk not only exact a different toll on the health of women and children, but also have an adverse impact on the health of the next generation. Women with poor nutrition, infectious diseases, and inadequate access to care tend to have infants with low birth weight, with poor nutritional condition, or we can say that whose chances of health and survival are compromised. Public health interventions have long focused on combating this problem through improved nutrition, cleaner household environment, and better health care. However, new or previously unrecognized health challenges continue to emerge, including overweight and obesity, lack of exercise, use of tobacco and alcohol, violence against women, and environmental risks such as poor urban air quality and adverse climate change. The impact of these emerging risks varies at different levels of socioeconomic development. Urban air pollution, for example, is often a greater risk to health in middle income countries compared with high income countries because the latter have made greater progress in environmental and public health policies. The risk transition reflects differences in the patterns of behavior of men and women. For example, in many settings, use of tobacco and alcohol was traditionally higher among men than women. More recently, however, smoking rates among females have started to approach those of males. The health consequences, that is, increased rate of cardiovascular disease and cancer, will emerge in the future. In low income and middle income countries, alcohol use is generally higher among men. However, in many higher income countries, male and female pattern of alcohol use are beginning to converge.
Now let's discuss about the socio-economic inequalities adversely affect health. Socioeconomic status is a major determinant of health for both sexes. As a general rule, women in higher income countries live longer and are less likely to suffer from ill health than women in low income countries. In high income countries, death rate among children and younger women are very low, and most death occurs after the age of 60 years. Whereas in the low income countries, the picture is quite different. The population is younger and death rates at younger age are higher, with most death occurring among girls, adolescent and younger adult women. When we discuss about the gender inequalities or inequities that affect women's health, the adverse impact on health of low socioeconomic status is compounded for women by gender inequities. In many countries and societies, women and girls are treated as socially inferior. Behavioral and other social norms, codes of conduct and laws perpetuates the subjugation of females and condone violence against them. Unequal power relation and gendered norms and values translate into differential access to and control over health resources, both within families and beyond. Gender inequalities in the allocation of resources such as income, education, healthcare, nutrition and political voice are strongly associated with poor health and reduced well-being. Thus, across a range of health problems, girls and women face differential exposure and vulnerability that are often poorly recognized.
Women amid conflicts and crises. Women face particular problem in disaster and emergency. Available data suggests that there is a pattern of gender differentiation at all stages of a disaster, that is exposed to risk perception, preparedness, response, physical impact, psychological impact, recovery, and reconstruction. Studies of several recent disasters in Southeast Asia found that more women than men died as a result of the disaster. In situations of conflict and crisis, women are often at greater risk of sexual coercion and rape. In the midst of natural disaster and armed conflict, access to health services may be even more restricted than normal, contributing to physical and mental health problems that include unwanted pregnancy and maternal and perinatal mortality. Even when health care is available, women may be unable to access it because of cultural restrictions or their household responsibilities.
Women in healthcare system. When we discuss about the women in healthcare systems, there are some of the important points that is highlighted over here. The socio-economic and gender-based inequalities that women face are placed out in their access to and use of healthcare services. As already noted, the poorest women are generally least likely to use healthcare services. The reasons are complex. Services may be unavailable or inaccessible, or women may be unable to find affordable transport. So, socio-cultural norms also often limits women's mobility and interaction with male health providers or outside.
Policy implications. Despite huge advances in health in recent years, women in many parts of the world still face health problems that should have been tackled many years ago. Elsewhere, women have benefited from progress only to find themselves confronting new problems, many of them chronic and emerging at older ages. These problems can be improved by health promotion and healthcare intervention earlier in life. Women and men share the same right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. However, women are disadvantaged due to social, cultural, political, and economic factors that directly influence their health and impede their access to health related information and care. Strategies to improve women's health must take full account of the underlying determinant of health, particularly gender inequality, and must address the specific socio-economic and cultural barriers that hamper women in protecting and improving their health. These strategies must be placed in the broader context of revitalized primary health care, which addresses both priority health needs and the underlying determinant of health. Primary health care can make a difference through policy action to strengthen leadership, build responsive health services, achieve universal coverage, and leverage change in public policies.
Now let's try to sum up some of the important points that we have discussed in these modules. Like women are an integral part of human society. Our Vedas also tells us that women held an important place in ancient culture. Women at home and society in general are a different cup of tea. Some health challenges affect both women and men. Women's health matter not only to women themselves, it is also crucial to the health of the children they will bear. Females generally live longer than males. The female's advantage in life expectancy may be a relatively recent phenomenon. One of the most striking features of a recent decade has been a shift in the underlying cause of death and the disease around the world. The risk transitions reflect differences in the pattern of behavior of men and women. Socioeconomic status is a major determinant of health for both sexes. Poverty and low socioeconomic status are associated with worse health outcome. Then the other important points are the adverse impact on health of low socioeconomic status is compounded for women by gender inequalities. Women face partial problem in disaster and emergencies. The socio-economic and gender-based inequalities that women face are placed out in their access to and also use of healthcare services. Female health workers, they face several work-related health problems. Despite huge advances in health in recent years, women in many parts of the world still face health problems that should have been tackled many years ago. Women and men, they share the same right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. This module has summarized some of the health challenges faced by women across their lives and has given an overview of some of the underlying determinant of women's health. It is clear that women around the world face health challenges at every stage of their life, from early childhood to old age, and whether at home, at work, or in a wider society. Thank you.